Connection is really important for giving an impactful performance that people listen to and go away feeling moved by. But you might not know how to get that connection or the reason that it is so important. Hi, I'm Hattie Voelcker, founder of Find Your True Voice, and this was my struggle for so many years. I struggled terribly with imposter syndrome and being able to connect with my audience, both when I was a barrister and as a singer, because I was terrified of people and their judgment of me. And that's why I teach what I teach now, because I thought the solution was to perfect everything, to get everything right so that people wouldn't judge me harshly and I would do really, really well. But that isn't the answer. The real solution is connection. And that's what this episode is all about. Now, if you struggle to feel comfortable and confident in front of an audience and you'd like some help with that, then ping me an email at Hattie, Hattie, at findyourtruevoice.co.uk. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me what sort of performing you want to do. And let's start finding a solution for you. I will answer you personally and usually pretty quickly. Let's dive into connection right now. What is connection all about? Think about this. When you really listen to somebody, when you feel really drawn into someone's performance, there are three things that happen. You are engaged with them, you are interested in what they are giving you, what they are performing, whether it's singing, acting, public speaking, whatever it is, you are interested, engaged, and bizarrely, you feel like they are performing to you, that you somehow, as the audience and as that individual audience member, are important to them, that you matter. And this is what connection gives you. When you are able to connect with the audience, they will feel engaged, interested, and like they are important to you. And that makes them listen more keenly and go away really impacted by what you have said, sung, or done. So how do you create that connection? Well, firstly, it's about engaging with your audience and understanding who they are. Because one of the biggest mistakes performers make is that they fear, understandably, they fear the judgment of their audience. And this triggers them actually to judge their audience preemptively. They judge that their audience are going to judge them harshly. They think their audience are going to judge them the way they judge themselves, in the most harsh way. And so they want to protect themselves from that judgment, and they recoil. They pull back and they go into themselves and they withdraw from connecting. So if you take a look at who your audience are and the reason they're there, remembering that they're human. So let's take an example of the audition panel. They've come, they're there to do a job. They might feel insecure about the job they're doing. They might think, I don't know if I'm going to pick the right person. They might be bored. They might have listened to the same song or excerpt again and again and again. They are human in this. And actually, what is it they would really love to get from you in that moment? What would make their day? And when you can tap into that and then line that up with what you want them to take away from you, that's where the gold lies. And that is also where connection lies. So you want them to feel like you have potential or you're the right person for the role. And part of that is making a connection. I was talking to a coach, a pianist who plays for auditions, and he said so often that audition is made or broken in the first few seconds by that initial connection. And if you walk into the audition and are thinking about what the audition panel want, not about what they think of you, but what they want, you will be more open to connect with them. And then you'll open up the channel whereby you can give them what you want them to take away, which is this openness and somebody they think they might want to work with or feel have potential, because you've also taken the pressure off yourself, which means you'll probably perform much better. Let's take another example. You're walking into a room to give a speech about something, And perhaps it's not a very interesting topic. What do your audience want? Yes, they probably want the information from that speech that you're giving, but they also probably want a certain level of entertainment. They want you to make that information interesting. And they probably want you to give them the salient points because they don't want to have to trawl through the information themselves. They want you to pull out the bits of information that are really useful to them. You want them probably to take away certain specific bits of information, and you probably want them to go away feeling like they've benefited from what you've had to say. And those two things can line up. And if you walk into the space knowing what they want and wanting to give them that, rather than thinking about what they think of you, you've opened up the channels of connection and you've started giving them what they want, which means they will feel more kindly towards you. And all of this reduces this fear of judgment because you're not concentrating on the judgment. And while you're thinking about what they want from you, you're also not judging them about what they may or may not think about you. And that reduces the temperature, which means you are more likely to connect with them and give them what they want, which is also what you want to give them, if that makes sense. The second thing I want to talk to you about is something that is bandied about all the time these days, and that's authenticity and vulnerability. Now, what the heck is authenticity when it comes to performing? And who the heck wants to be vulnerable when you are performing? We don't want to be vulnerable. We want to be invulnerable and super protected. However, that's not what your audience wants, because actually your audience wants to feel something. And in order to feel something, they have to connect with you on a human level. And in order for them to connect with you on a human level, it's really important you let go of perfectionism, because nobody connects with perfect. If you think about how you feel about perfect, when somebody's really, really perfect, you either feel slightly inferior to them or you don't quite trust it. Because when you aim to be perfect, it's really about you protecting you. We say that it's about, oh, I want to meet the audience expectations. I don't want to let them down. And we may even think that, but fundamentally it's more about you protecting yourself from their judgment. Well, as I said, their judgment is actually something you are putting on them because you are judging them to be judgmental of you. So let's let that one go. But actually, what they'd much rather have is some humanity, because that actually makes them feel more comfortable in the space. In fact, they'd much rather have that sense that you will be okay if things go wrong, that sense that they're in safe hands, not that nothing will go wrong, because nobody can guarantee that nothing will go wrong, but that they are safe if something does go awry. And that really depends on you, how safe you feel if things go wrong. If you're aiming for perfection and perfection is what you're going for, then there's this rigidity and brittleness to it, which means when stuff goes wrong, because it goes wrong all the time, actually you seize up rather than going with the flow and making the audience still feel safe in that space. So that's what they really want. They want you to know that you'll be okay if things go wrong. And that's about letting go of perfection. And in letting go of perfection, you are making space that it's okay for you to be vulnerable for things to go wrong. And that's the sort of vulnerability I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the vulnerability of the oversharing, because that's another form of protection. That's not genuine. That's not authentic. Authenticity is going, it's okay for me to be human in this space. Because I'm really sorry to break this to you, but there's nothing you can be other than human in this space. You are human and you are capable of making mistakes, and no amount of preparation will stop those things happening. They might reduce it, but they will never stop it. So I once thought that my work meant that I would have to do less preparation. But what I've discovered is it means I actually do very different preparation, because I used to prepare to try and get everything perfect, to make mistakes not a possibility. But what I did was suck the joy out of everything I was doing, not only for me, but for my audience. I also sucked the meaning out of what I was doing. Now I prepare on a much deeper level because I prepare in order to communicate with my audience, to communicate a message, some emotion, some feeling, because that is when they feel engaged and interested and like I'm talking just to them. So what matters to me now is much more the message than not making a mistake. And in that sense, I now have to prepare the message and understand when I'm preparing a song, not just understand the words and what they mean, but the reason they're there and the overarching message and the message in this line and the message in that line. When I'm preparing to do a talk, it's like, what do I want the audience to understand from this? What do I want them to take away? Not what words go in which order and getting all the right words in the right place. It's much more about that deeper level of communication. And that actually takes more preparation than the sort of preparation I used to do before. But it's much more interesting, that sort of preparation. And it also prepares me to have that flexibility that if something goes wrong, whether it's with a song or a speech, it's much easier for me to get back into the flow, because if I have learnt the whole meaning and message of a song, then if I fall off, I'm not relying on one word after another to get back into it. I can get back into, this is about this section. What is Cleopatra singing about here? The same in my talking. If I fall off the plan, or if somebody asks me a question, I know roughly where I am and where I want to go. So it's much easier for me to get back in. But that takes a deeper level of preparation and planning. But then I'm planning with all this flexibility within it, that if things go awry, I don't fall apart anymore. And that brings me to the energy in the space, because the interesting thing is you have more influence over your energy and how you feel about things than you realize. If you think about the things you might currently be saying to yourself before a performance, it's probably, you can probably recognize that they're not helping you to be in a great energetic space. It's like telling a kid, go out and play, but watch out for the dangerous roads and don't talk to strangers, and it's going to get dark soon, so be back soon, and take your gloves because it's cold, and take your raincoat because it might rain, and are you going to get hungry, and pointing out all of the things that could go wrong, and then saying, go out and have fun. They're not going to want to go out, or if they do, they're going to be a lot more nervous, or maybe they won't want to go out and play at all. So you're predicting the worst about your performance might be intended to keep you safe and have you feel safe in the moment to protect yourself from things going wrong. But what you're doing is you're changing the energy, and you're making the energy feel like it's all going to be bad. However, if you predict the best, it doesn't mean you become oblivious to all the things that go wrong, because that's just another form of protection when you ignore what might go wrong. It's that middle space where you're focusing on the good stuff but not unaware of what might go wrong. And when you focus on the good stuff and bring your energy up, you go into the space more open, more willing to connect. When you focus on the negative, you're more withdrawn, which means you don't connect. So focusing on the positive and going out feeling joyful and energetic and like it's all going to be an enjoyable experience for everybody, then you are going to be more open, and you're going to trigger that sense of joy in your audience, which means they're going to be more open to you, and you've opened up those lines of connection again. So when you predict the negative, again, you've done this thing where you start to reject the audience before they've had a chance to reject you. When you predict the positive, you open up and are open to receiving stuff from the audience as well as giving stuff to the audience, which creates that connection. The last thing I want to say is so much effort can be spent by performers trying to mind read their audience. And I can tell you without fail, when you try to work out what an audience thinks about you, you will predict the worst. I know that I'm not a bad empath. I'm a coach. That's part of what I do. But the one area where I go completely awry is when I'm trying to predict or understand what people think of me. I just can't tell. And so don't try and work out what people think of you and focus on what people think of you, because that makes it about you. It makes it about judgment. You're then predicting their judgment of you, and you reject them or push them away and go into yourself because you fear the worst. What you can do is you can choose to impose a presumption that they like you and they think good things of you. And you work on that assumption. And by working on that assumption, you feel more open to them. And the wonderful thing about that is the more open you are to them, the more relaxed you feel, the better you will perform and the better they will receive you, because the more open you are to them, the more they feel accepted, they feel like they are important to you, and the more you are open to receiving stuff from them and you open those lines of communication. So impose the idea that they like what you're doing. It won't mean that you will become one of those people who becomes oblivious to the negative feedback, because again, that's another form of defense. That's where you cut off from feedback. What I'm saying is, believe that they think good things of you and focus on what they want. Focus not about what they think of you, but focus on what they want. And actually you become more open and you will start to notice the nuance of what's going on in the audience, whether the energy is high or low, whether you want to lift the energy, and you start to have much more influence over what's going on. So to recap, remember, your audience are human. They're there for a reason. They will judge you, but they're not there to judge you. And if you can focus on what they want and what you want them to take away, it'll actually open up those lines of communication and stop you fearing their judgment, which stops you judging them, which stops you withdrawing from them, and means you are much more open to connect with them. And when they don't feel judged, they're more open to connecting with you. Secondly, authenticity and vulnerability is all about letting go of perfection. It's allowing yourself to be who you are, and that is human, and human is okay, because it's much more important to the audience that they know that if anything goes wrong, you've got this. They'd much rather that than feel like you're going to get everything perfect, because actually perfect doesn't feel comfortable or safe or nice to people. There's a brittleness to it and also an inauthenticity to it. Cracky, that's a hard word to say. Let go of judgment. Let go of fear of judgment that they might have of you, because that will stop you judging them, and stop judging yourself, because that is the core. If you didn't judge yourself, you wouldn't predict that they would judge you negatively, and then you wouldn't judge them for judging you negatively even before they've judged you. Too many judges in one sentence. And finally, you have more influence over your energy than you realize. If you go into the space feeling positive and upbeat, your audience will feel that and they'll respond to that. And again, that drives this wonderful connection. If you go in predicting the worst, you will go in small and scared, and your audience will feel that too. So go in with an open heart, ready to connect. I'd love to know how you get on applying some of these techniques. You can either email me at Hattie, Hattie, at findyourtruevoice.co.uk, or connect with me on social media at findyourtruevoiceuk. Next time, we are going to be looking at the experiences of one of my clients to see what they've learned and how you can apply that to enjoy your performing more and feel more competent and capable when you are performing, which will allow you to relax and perform better. I'm Hattie Voelcker, founder of findyourtruevoice.co.uk. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and do connect with me if you feel that you'd like some help getting comfortable and confident in front of your audiences.